Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back to another edition here of Intuitive Angling. And man, thank each and every one of you guys for taking some time out of your day to check the video out. It's always much appreciated. Today we're going to be talking about the most embarrassing question that an angler can make, and I'm going to answer that question for you guys. So I think it's going to be an interesting conversation here. So guys, before we get started here, just wanted to give you guys the weekly reminder about our summer Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns. Man, if you're struggling to find lakes on your favorite lakes across the country, go by and check them out at fishthemoment.com. I'll put the link in the description. The lake map breakdowns gives you 40 good GPS waypoints to begin your search at, where you can duplicate it around the lake in other areas. Tips and advice on how to fish each area you can download straight to your depth finder. And also, if the lake you fish is not on our website, you can book a virtual lesson with me and we can go over on a Zoom call any lake in the country you want to go over, or just talk fishing or whatever. So I'll put all that in the description here. Much appreciated. Okay guys, what is the most embarrassing question that an angler can make? First of all, before I tell you what it is, I'm going to tell you guys that don't feel bad about asking any fishing question. It's like you should never be hesitant or feel bad about asking a question, because we're all in a constant learning process. Everybody is. I don't care how skilled you are. Kevin Van Dam, arguably one of the greatest, Kevin Van Dam, Roland Martin, all those guys, the greatest anglers of all time, they still have tons of questions about fishing. We all do. But the question that seems to be most embarrassing to most anglers that they ask, I'm going to answer that question, is how do I detect a strike? I hear that all the time about guys. I think I had a bite. Was that a bite? I'm not sure. What does a bite feel like? What does a bite, when they bite a jig, what does it feel like? When a fish bites a crankbait, what does it feel like? So we're going to get into that a little bit on there. First of all, that one of the things you have to realize about bites is the way a bite feels is not the same all the way on any lure that you have out there. It's like, I don't care if it's a slow bait like a jig or a shaky head or a Texas ring worm, or if it's a spinner bait or a chatter bait or whatever. The mood and the personality of the fish a lot of times makes the feel of that bite different. So sometimes that's a very legitimate question, because they're hard to detect. I mean, even as much as I've fished, for as many decades that I've fished, there's sometimes when I feel something, I'm not really sure if that was a bite. I got a 98% vibe on that, if I really thought that was a bite or not. But there's still sometimes that you just don't quite know. So let's talk a little bit about some of the more difficult bites to detect, and then we'll talk about the other lure categories. One of the most difficult bites to detect is a jig or a worm or a shaky head or something that you're working slow on the bottom like that. And the reason you do this is a lot of times it's like when you throw that bait out there and that bait is fallen, you got a lot of different types of bites. Sometimes when the lure's fallen, you'll see your line just tick like that, which is my favorite type of bite. The line jumps and one has inhaled it. That's one type of bite. You don't feel it, you see that bite for the most part. The other type of bite is when you're working it out there and you actually feel tug like that. You feel like almost like something jerks your line right there. That's the obvious type of bite. That's a real aggressive type bite. Other times you throw out there and you're working that bait across the bottom, and all of a sudden it feels like it's weightless, like there's just no weight to it. You've lost contact with the bait, and if you don't do anything, you'll notice your line starts swimming out. That's another type of bait. But some of the strikes that are really difficult to detect are the ones that when you pull up on it, it's like there's a resistance, but it's coming and it's sort of mushy feeling, because sometimes the fish will bite a lure and not move with it. They'll just go like that. And if you fished a lot, these are the ones that fool me sometimes, is it's coming to you, it's mushy, but it just doesn't feel right. Now, a lot of times you can have a twig on your line, you can have a little rock on your line. The most common one is when you pull up and you've hooked a limb. Let me see if I can find a limb. You've hooked that little stick like this, and you're pulling that stick, and that stick is going sideways through the water, and it makes your line move to the side that the stick's moving, and sometimes that's a very difficult strike to detect. So most of the time, if you have a slow bite strike like that, you're going to be able to, you're going to know something's different, and you're going to know that that's probably something alive down there. But if you don't know, simply, it doesn't hurt just to set the hook. It doesn't cost anything. You hear all the time to set the hook, so just set it. Now, other baits like that, let's say for example a moving bait like a crankbait, a spinner bait, a chatterbait, something like that, it's the same type of deal. Sometimes you're reeling out there and you'll be reeling that crankbait or that chatterbait, and the fish comes up from behind it and just slams it, and it gets slack in your line. So you'll be reeling that crankbait and you'll feel that crankbait vibrating like that. All of a sudden you lose contact with the vibration. That means that fish has it. Sometimes you can be snagged up on something a little bit, but most of the time, if you lose contact on that crankbait or that spinnerbait or that chatterbait, go ahead and set the hook on it, because a fish has come up from behind it and got it. Other times they just slam it. They like take the rod out of your hand, and you know, that's an obvious type of strike. And sometimes a fish will swim up from behind it like that and just slowly grab the bait, and they don't really swim fast enough to take slack out of the line, but they swim fast enough to almost like you lose the vibration. It's like you don't feel that spinnerbait blade thumping, you don't feel that chatterbait blade thumping, and a lot of times those fish have just come out and just nipped at it like that and held it like that. So sometimes that can be a fairly difficult strike. So in essence, guys, you have two type of lure categories, two different type of strikes. You got a moving bait strike and you got a slow bait strike. And after you start catching a few fish, you're not going to get fooled near as much. You're going to be able to detect those fish. And to get back to the question, as far as the most embarrassing question a person asks, it's like, how do I detect a strike? Just be patient with yourself, because the more that you fish and the more strikes that you get, the more that you're going to be able to detect a strike, and you're not going to get fooled as much. But make no mistake about it, guys, everybody gets fooled. I get fooled, Roland Martin gets fooled, you know, Jacob Wheeler gets fooled, everybody gets fooled, because there's stuff down there that moves the same way that it feels like when you get a strike when a fish hooks. Another piece of advice I'll give you guys to finalize the video here is, when you get a strike, don't get it in a big hurry to set the hook. You've got plenty of time. If you get a bite on a jig or shaky head or drop shot or slow bait, if it's a decent fish, 98% of the time, they're not going to drop that thing. You don't have to like set the hook immediately or you're going to lose it. For the most part, you know, just reel down, take your slack out of your line, and just pull into the fish. You know, that's the whole key with that. Just pull in, keep constant pressure coming there, and you'll land a lot more fish. So anyway, hope it helps out, guys, and we'll talk later. See you.